Hello and welcome to another episode of Speculative Speculations. I'm Vasha.
I'm Jared.
And I'm Chris.
Okay. There was a real delay before you said I'm Chris. Wasn't sure if that was just on mine. Anyway, this is a series where we talk about speculative stories in all their forms. We just finished the second book of the Inhibitor trilogy by Alistair Reynolds. It was called Redemption Arc. We will be continuing on with that, but not today. Today we will be chatting about Solaris by Stanislaw Lem. I think that's how you say the name. We are dividing the discussion up into two parts. Today we'll go up to page 94 or so. We're stopping just before the chapter entitled The Conference. And next week we'll finish the book. The short story for today is Pot by C.J Cherryh, and the short story for next week will be Snow by John Crowley. And then once we finish Solaris, we'll pick up the last book of the Inhibitor trilogy. We also know what we're reading after that because we spun the wheel last week. We're going to be reading Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. Did I get that right? Yes. That's going to be about 8 or 9 weeks from now. But if you'd like to join us, something to think about. Anyway, with all that said, Solaris. What did we think and why did we love this book and why is this making your best books of the year list?
Wow. I don't think you've ever asked it that way before. Cool. Enjoyable. I don't know about best books of the year, but I was pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed the narrative in here. I was for some reason I still had what's his name, Reynolds, on my mind, and I was dreading a Reynolds-like narrative going into this because it was like, okay, that's what we read, that's what we just read, and then I get this first person narrative by our main character. I don't remember his name, but
Chris
Calvin.
Oh, it's Chris. Okay, all right, Chris. Well,
okay.
Yeah. So, and I liked how it built up from one step to the next. You get, his arrival at the station. You get these strange circumstances where the people are acting strangely towards him, and you don't know if it's just because, at first, if it's just because he's the new guy and they're kind of just, they don't like new guys or what have you, or if there's something else going on. And of course there is something else going on, and we start to learn that step by step, and the tenseness of his situation builds slowly, and the eventual oncoming horror of what is coming builds slowly. And then we get there and it's like, yeah, okay, that it's a good payoff. And now we stopped right in the middle of the book, so now we're in it, and we'll see how it goes after that. But I enjoyed it. I liked how it was structured. I liked how it presented itself, and it was kind of it is a classic book. It's 1961 it was written, and so it had a classic horror sci-fi feel that I don't think we've read this style in quite a long time. I don't remember the last time we read something like this, and so it was cool. I enjoyed it.
It was all the way back when we first started the podcast. Sorry, I meant to bring this up. This really reminded me of Annihilation, the Area X vibes and the mystery, and I think the previous expeditions of it all, and just like what the heck is going on with this place.
Sure. Yeah.
It reminded me very strongly of Area X. So, anyway, sorry, Chris, your turn.
Yeah, so reasons that it's good. I was going to bring up the fact that it is a puzzle box book, at the start, definitely. So it was Annihilation kind of came into my head as well. It almost has like a noirish feel in some ways of kind of lone detective kind of trying to work out what's going on in this place. And like the whole start of the book is vibes. Like it is very eerie. It is very, unsettling, I think, the whole way along. And you have this kind of battle between what is happening on the station and then this planet around them, and kind of how these two things don't seem to be the same thing, but as the pages kind of move on, you can start to see that one is sort of bleeding into the other one. And it also has a lot of those themes that I kind of like, which is like man's impact on space and the world around him and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I had an awful lot of fun. I have to say though, I'm colored by the fact that I have seen the films for these, so I sort of know what's going on in it. So there not be any mad theories from me for this book, but it is really nice to see it play out on the page, if that makes sense, and the kind of weird and wonderful that is there and will continue to be through the rest of the book, which is cool.
Cool. Well, I guess you can lead the wild theories up to Vasher and I, and you can try to hide your reaction while we do so.
You can practice your poker face during this discussion. But yeah, I think this book like sucked me right in, much like Annihilation did, and I think for the same reasons. I think I knew or vaguely remembered going into the book, hearing about the fact that this is about a somewhat sentient planet, and I thought that might be something that's revealed to us towards the end of the book, but then it surprised me in that we started with that premise and now we're just trying to figure out what kind of sentience this planet has, whether it really is an intelligent being that can apparently modify its own orbit so that it's stable while orbiting these two suns. And that part reminded me a little bit of The Expanse, without saying too much. But anyway, so that mystery was excellent, like how that was laid out in the beginning, the history of the planet and why this man is here, what they're trying to accomplish with the research that they're doing on this planet. And then it got really creepy really quickly with the behavior of, what was that man's name? Snow. When he arrived at the station, first there was nobody to greet him, and then wait, am I messing up the short story with this one? I think that also had someone land on a planet with nobody to greet him. But this, I think the most interesting part for me, before of course Rhea showed up and like escalated everything, was when he felt this presence, like something staring at him, like this sense of being observed. That was just so well done, those descriptions. It gave me goosebumps as I was reading it. And then the build up and what happened after that with the random people who weren't on this expedition showing up, that were probably read from their mind by this planet. Which, okay, do I have it wrong? I initially thought that they were on some boat type thing on the ocean, but no, they're in a station that's orbiting the planet, is it?
They are, yes.
Okay, interesting. So whatever this planet is doing, whatever reading of the human mind it's doing it from this distance. Which, okay, that's even more terrifying.
Yeah.
But crucially, I think the point is that it only really started happening when they started experimenting on it with the gamma rays and the X rays,
X-rays.
Mm.
Yeah.
So it wasn't doing it proactively. It was doing it in response to being probed. And you could argue the humans trying to do to it what it is doing to them.
Mm. Interesting. So, is it? So there's two ways to think about that, right? One is they triggered something that made it want to, well, retaliate, like you said, or it was sort of a reflex reaction that it's doing, which then in the, what was it called, the little apocrypha, the account that pilot gave of how he saw the garden and everything, uh I guess that also happened after a person died in the ocean, right? Oh, so is it not the X-ray perhaps, or but the fact that the ocean, when it absorbs a person, it's able to, uh I don't know, recreate all its memories and stuff. Because here also, when they did the X-ray experiments, they lost a person, and presumably they died in the ocean. So maybe that's what triggered it. So every time someone dies in the ocean, that's what creates the hallucinations. Chris is trying really hard not to say anything.
Poker face.
Uh,
Wait,
yeah.
but
So,
this is reminding me of so many books. What we just read, right? Pattern jugglers seem very similar to this
Mhm.
ocean that can, at least what we know of it so far, that if you dive into it, it can read your memories and then replicate things that you know. Uh, and
yeah.
also remind me of the second book of Children of Time. What was it? Children of
Mhm.
Uh,
Ruin.
Ruin. Yeah.
Ruin. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. The alien in the on that world with the octopi.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. That big child reminded me of the big face in the ocean in the second book. But um
Yeah. 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 Very creepy. And but I also like the occasional. We also got the occasional. Science explanation that came forth when he said stuff like it was physicists rather than biologists who put forward the paradoxical formulation of a plasmic mechanism and stuff like that. That was fun
Mhm.
stuff.
yeah.
He had, and he was going on about the Einstein Bovia theory and stuff like that, and how the ocean was actually aware of this theory enough to act upon it. So that was like, and that was pretty early on. So it was like they knew that this ocean was up to something. um, some sort of sentience, or at least instinctual awareness of things. So I thought that was pretty cool, and it wasn't like overdone. Um, it quickly got back to him trying to talk to his Snow and the other people there, trying to find out what's going on with them, and the irritation you felt when you know Snow wasn't giving him any answers, or all these vagaries he keeps throwing at him, um, telling him, "Oh, just wait and see, just wait," and it's just like, "Come on, man, what's going on?" And so that was pretty well done, and I like. And because you could feel the guy's frustration, and you wanted the same thing as him. You wanted like Snow to tell you what to expect and what's going on. Why do I need to find out for myself? You're a scientist. Just tell me the science of what's going on here. And
Mhm.
and he doesn't. And he's like, nope, just gotta see for yourself. And that is so, like, that's good storytelling, because it really makes the reader want to know, and just as much as him. And so it was pretty good, pretty well done there.
Yeah. The the nature of the interactions is so interesting, because obviously Snow, when he greets him at the start, is very standoffish and cold, and we don't really understand why. But even in such a short book, by the time we get to the section that we've got, we understand why Snow's like that, because Snow's actually not sure whether Chris is a person or not, or an interaction. Is there any point in interacting with this person? Is there any point in speaking to them? Are they even here? There's that doubt being creeping in your mind, and how do you talk about this? The very nature of those interactions, I think, becomes the key part of the book, and as classically happens, we stopped at such a great point, because we have the return of Rhea, who we'll obviously talk about, and I think it's interesting how, and it'll be interesting to hear how you both feel about the return of Rhea in the book, because it seemed to be sort of finite, that happening, and that was dealt with, and then we talk to Snow, and he says, no, actually, this is going to be a thing, and how that would play on the psyche, and actually how that plays with your sense of where you are and what you are and all of that kind of stuff. Those to me are the kind of questions that this will bring up for the reader for the rest of it. But I think the attitudes to Rhea specifically are fascinating, because in any other setting, this is scary, frightening in its own right. However, what is the nature of this sentient kind of relationship with this ocean? What is it doing? Is it is it malevolent? Is it benevolent? What is the nature of that? And I think one of the real beauties that I've found in this book so far is how Lem is able to kind of let the reader experience what the person on the space station is feeling by just playing with their emotions that way, and interaction and all of that kind of stuff. So it's really cool how it's laid out. I'm really enjoying every time there is an interaction, whether it's with Snow, Rhea, or Sartorius as the other guy. Everybody's sort of a bit weird. Even the guy that's dead, the interactions with him are fascinating as well. Gabaris, or whatever you call him. When the kind of sight of seeing the Negress and all of that kind of stuff with him, what does that mean? It's, again, total puzzle box. And there's no doubt that, how do you talk about this without giving spoiler for annihilation? But the ocean and the crawler, I think, are interesting parallels.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Or the very nature of Area X. Yeah. Very interesting parallels.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. We could do a comparison episode between the two. There's so many things that you could say resemble each other between the two. I'd be very curious if Vandermeer was influenced by this book for Area X.
Absolutely,
but with or without, there's just so many things that are similar between the two. I really love that scene where our guy Chris was trying to convince himself that he was mad, and being mad was the better outcome. He was disappointed when it turned out that his numbers matched and the computer did actually exist. So the other people existed. So now he must believe everything else that he saw, rather than just taking the easy route and thinking he's just hallucinating. Some bad air crept in, and he must be having some sort of hallucinatory fit. But that whole sequence in which, like, he did the math and figured out how to do the comparison, that was brilliant, especially because it ended with finding similar computations that someone else did to also convince themselves of the same thing. And yeah.
It's funny, the his reaction, because the planet conjured up his dead wife, right? Because that she committed suicide of a sorts, where that he blamed himself for, and so I thought that his approach to that event was very interesting, where he was kind of balancing the science side of his mind with his natural longing for his dead wife, and because I don't know if anybody in the same situation would be so inclined to not just dive into the fantasy of having your wife back, and live that out as long as he could. Uh, it probably would have escalated poorly if he did, but the how quickly he let his scientific side of his brain figure things out, and deal with that situation, I thought was pretty impressive.
Yeah. And also how he dealt with Rhea when he realized that it could be sanity or well, it wasn't real. It was very clinical and cold, if you know what I mean. It wasn't done with emotion, you know what I mean, with him putting on the spacesuits and then the shuttles and very little
Yeah.
interactive. It was just kind of done and shut the door and away you go and walk away from it. There was no crying, there was no angst, there was nothing like that to it. It was very much he carried out the experiment the preview was saying in much the same manner as he dealt with his apparition of his dead wife. And I think what's especially interesting about that is that Rhea as a character displays emotion in ways that he doesn't. She says, like, I don't know where I am, how did I get here, all of that kind of stuff. Very like human emotions of that kind of pleading with him to explain and help out in much the same way as he did with Snow. Basically telling me what's going on, and Snow didn't give him anything back, and Chris is not giving anything back to Rhea. There's no kind of working out that it was his wife and he could help her along. He realized it wasn't his wife earlier on, but yet you see some signs that he can't help himself still engage with the character because of the pain that's in his past and the memories that are there. And that's why he had to put it in the shuttle and basically blow it out to space, because he didn't want to really confront that anymore.
Yeah.
So this might be a bit cynical of me, but there was something interesting in what he said to Snow about how his wife died. She apparently he told her that he brought home some injections, and he warned her not to go near them, and that they are a very lethal dose. So it seems strange to me that you have to warn someone about that, unless they regularly used injections. Maybe she was prone to drug abuse. I don't know, but but it seems strange to me to specifically tell someone, "Hey, look, this is a lethal dose. Uh, don't go near it," so they know where to find it if they need it. So there's a small part of me that makes me think that he almost wanted her to kill herself, but that could just be me. Because that seems like a strange thing to tell someone. Like if you have filled syringes in the house, why would you want to just shove them inside yourself without knowing what it would do, right? Why did he need to warn her like that?
Yeah, no, it's like bringing a big bottle of booze into the house of an alcoholic and saying, "I'm just putting this up on the shelf, but don't touch it.
Yeah.
It's there though.
Yeah.
I'm going out now."
Yeah. So yeah, that was curious, I thought. But yeah, I do agree that his interaction with her, the mixture of pain and clinical objectivity that he brought to it was very interesting. Really well done.
Yeah, no, and you wonder how much of his own guilt is built into that manifestation,
Hmm.
because obviously the planet is the ocean is taking these just from his mind,
Yeah.
so it's definitely his. It's the manifestation is only from his recollections of his wife, and from the limited um, information that the manifestation has, and so it's definitely he definitely has guilt over what happened, um, but how he's dealing with that guilt, like putting her in the shuttle and throwing it out into space, is almost a kind of like symbolic of him trying to throw away his guilt, not deal with it, put it somewhere else, put it in a compartmentalize it. So it's pretty clever book.
Yeah. Yeah. That was great. I forgot what my next topic was going to be. Someone else
Well,
go.
I'll ask you how you feel about Rhea, especially now that it appears that she returned just before we finished. Are you glad to see her back? Do you like the possibilities that their character brings? So what is your general feeling about this, other than it being creepy and weird and all of that kind of stuff? I feel it's interesting because I definitely got a sense that I was really glad to see her back, because it is almost like in a science experiment. It's a control element. You know what I mean? It's the thing that's going to come back, and then we'll see how it plays out a second time. You know, we'll change something else about the experiment, and then go ahead and do it.
That's interesting. Yeah.
I thought it was really chilling. I think just before she showed up, we got this little bit of a monologue about how they keep coming back. Like, this wasn't Snow, right? This was our character who's like literally just gotten here, but he's already realized the implications of what Snow told him, that they aren't going to keep trying to get rid of these visitors. They learn to live with them, and they might keep coming back, or they might manifest in different ways. But I think they abandoned the idea of leaving this station. He instead speaks of resignation, and I thought that was interesting. And combining that with Rhea coming back, I think we might see some sort of dynamic shift. And to your point about her being the control in an experiment, like, this is sort of they're into the ocean, right? These visitors, that's kind of what it is. They figure out through this what the ocean knows and understands. So yeah, maybe she's nice as a scientific experiment, but I'm also curious about the psychological aspect of it, because even though he speaks with so much resignation, I think it'll take a while to get there.
Yeah.
But I had another question about, or I guess I wanted to theorize a little bit about what we think the ocean might know or understand of human nature. So what did that remind me of? The ocean, when we got that whole garden and the giant baby, etc., from the pilot, from what he saw on the ocean surface, that had such a grotesque feeling to it, right? Like taking something and whacking it out of shape. But I feel like we've read some other books where there was some entity that did that, and maybe Area X was one of them. I don't remember, but that changed now to like these really well-formed, fully formed human beings. So the ocean was potentially observing our guy from those 2 times that he thought that he was being observed, right? And so, but he didn't put in the knowledge of her suicide in Rhea. Like, that came from memory, and she referred to people that he knew that she definitely could not have known. So it did like read enough memories to build that persona, but it chose to leave some things out. But also Snow said that it brings about the thing that maybe, I'm paraphrasing, but maybe you hate yourself the most for, it manifests that into being. So it seems to want to play with its food, so to speak, in that it wants to manifest like the worst thing that you could imagine for yourself. So is the omission of the knowledge of how Rhea died, is that deliberate to torment him more, or is that just out of its scope of abilities to read that kind of emotion and expression? That's something that I'm going to be looking out for as we make progress through this.
That theory's too wild for me. Can't top that. No, that's good.
I'm doing poker face again.
Poker face.
Yeah, that's good. I will be looking out for that as well. That's good stuff.
Yeah, I have a question then for you based on that, Varsha, because it sort of links in the same thing, and again I'm trying to think about what I should say and otherwise. So this question was raised by Chris to Snow essentially, and they didn't answer it at the time, but I think it plays a key part in the rest of the book in some ways. So this idea that he's seen the Negress, he's seen the other people, he's seen Rhea, he's seen whatever, and Snow sees their own person, etc. There's a sort of implication that these people are actually on the ship, and that why can't you hear two voices, and why can't you do that? So are these things actually on the ship, on the thing? Because they keep on talking about how do they get in through the locked doors, how do they get on the spaceship, how does this actually happen, or is it something else?
Interesting.
That is true, because I wonder if when he shot the Rhea out into space, I wonder if Snow knew there was nothing on that capsule, whatever he is that he, or if and he just didn't say anything because Chris wouldn't believe it, or because he knows that nobody believes what he's going through. Well, Chris didn't believe what he was going through when he first got there. I wonder. Yeah, that makes me think if the only the people affected seeing what's affecting them.
Because both things are possible, right? I mean, it's not an absolute either way. But because they see them as so real, there is definitely a question whether they're actually manifest and have mass, or whether they are psychosomatic in some way.
He saw the second body alongside.
Yes.
And that person was presumably, what's his name? Gibrarian, his manifestation.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yes.
But he saw her twice. And she was potentially still living in a way. She looked dead, but she was still living. So it's possible that, this where that there's some confusion and it's trying to manifest her to him. But yeah, so I guess the question is if what's the third guy's name? Sartorius? Sartorius? If he had opened the door to him, would he have seen what he saw? Yeah.
That's the question, yeah.
But okay, they don't hear two voices, but he heard multiple people being in the room.
He heard a bunch of noise, right?
He also heard, I think, the pitter patter of a second pair of feet or something, and I think he also heard a child's voice or something, or child's feet, or something that wasn't the scientist who was in the room with him.
But did he want to imagine hearing something else? And did the ocean then put those noises in his head?
Oh, okay, if it can manipulate at that deeper level.
I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah. That is a very difficult question.
Yeah.
Also, something
things to chew on as you get towards the end of the book, for sure. Things to think about. The other thing that springs to mind for me is around the nature of the ocean, right? Because it's again, when you're at space looking down the planet, you see landmass, you see water. You don't really see an awful lot of else, so it is a very recognizable kind of trope. So the idea of the ocean as being both a giver of life and a threat to life. And also how, when you're kind of investigating the planet as they are, they're kind of investigating the events of the planet, they are treating what they see from space as you would a human. They see a landmass, they see water, and they attribute the things that are like that. But again, what does this ocean or this thing want? Like, what's its end game? Like, what is it really hoping to do at the end of it? Is it looking to give life? Is it looking to take life away? What is it really doing? And why is it approaching, or how is it approaching interacting with the people in the station? Because it's obviously you used Ray with Chris, which is obviously a very dark a memory that he's tried to suppress. Because as you rightly say, Varsha, it is sort of indicated that he maybe has some culpability in her death. You know, I think that's intentionally kind of put out there for the reader, whether it's in his head or not. So it's obviously things that are very, you know, he carries around with him, but he can't talk about with anybody. You know, it's not like he can walk around and go, Jesus, I think I did kill my wife because these are all the reasons. Whereas he can do that with this other version of Red that's there because that person is there. So is it a way to trauma bond? Is it a way to deal with that pain, or what is the nature of that?
Yeah. I mean, really, what it means, what a temptation to like unload all the things you want to, because it's one of those things where you can do that and not fear the ramifications of another human judging you for your actions, um, or just trying to fix you, or whatever the case may be. You know, it's so the I'm looking forward for that, more of that interaction and seeing how that works with this character. Um, and you're right about the, you know, that human perception. We're always going to perceive things to be a certain way until proven otherwise, basically. And so seeing it as just an ocean from space, it may be the wrong way to look at it. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
all
because
interesting.
the account from Britain, in the Apocrypha about the person dying in the sea is assumed to be drowned, but they also don't know that that's what happened. Do you know what I mean? That's a human perception of that person was swallowed by the ocean, therefore drowned and died, because that's what would happen on Earth. But again, the nature of this kind of ocean doesn't necessarily have to be just as water. You know, in some ways, did the kind of consuming of that kind of give knowledge, or whatever else it is. I actually can't remember any of that kind of stuff, but those are the kind of questions I think that the Apocrypha kind of asks, and that account does ask of the reader.
Yeah. And I desperately like to know what they didn't tell us about what the guy saw. Because I love that he took a stand and said, well, if you think it's hallucinations, I'm not going to share. I don't owe you that.
Yes.
uh, but yeah, lots to look forward to. I'm really glad we're going. I'm both happy and sad that we'll finish the book next week because it's going to end so soon, unlike certain books, really. But we'll also get all our answers, maybe.
Well, I wouldn't totally hang on the fact that you're going to get every answer. Puzzle box books
Uh,
rarely
that's true.
do that.
Yeah.
But I think it's fair to say, even in 94 pages that were read, you can see how influential this book is. Like, it's incredibly
Yeah,
influential on so many other pieces of fiction that within this genre and beyond. You know.
absolutely. I mean, I think about the time it was written, and I think about all the other novels we've read during
Yes.
those times, the late 50s, early 60s, and so on. And this seems to be a little ahead of the curve with some of those other novels that we've read from those times in the sci-fi masterwork collections and stuff like that. It's really tight, and it's really it's just the presentation and the structure is really it seems to be a little bit further along in the than maybe it's more literary. I don't know if it's just but it really has an impact on the reader, that's just feels more modern than some of the other novels we read from that period.
Yeah. Did is this translated or is it originally in English?
Yeah, it's translated. It's
Translated, yeah.
because the first translated version wasn't out until 1970,
Mm.
and then That's when the translation copyright went into play, but the originally was written in 61.
Okay.
And the other thing that I really like about it as well, and it actually is something that one of my favorite things to watch and study, is films from the Eastern Bloc in the 1960s as well, late 50s, early 60s, films from Czechoslovakia, that kind of stuff, and how art was suppressed and banned in an awful lot of ways if it was too on the nose about oppressive states. So if they thought you were criticizing the government, those things get banned and you weren't allowed to make anything or release anything ever again. Things like Master and the Margarita by Bulgakov would be another kind of one that spoke about, would have been in that kind of frame as well. So writers, filmmakers, artists had to find other ways of telling stories that spoke about their experience within of suppression at that stage, and you can definitely feel that through Solaris. You can definitely feel about the very nature of their existence and how cold and closed it is, and how they lack the connection to deal with the issues that they had, and a lot of those kind of books and films, etc., talk about the aftermath of World War II and how they weren't allowed to ever deal with the grief and the fallout of all of the horrible events of that time. It was sort of suppressed, and again, I can see that within Solaris here about, you know, you look at the trauma of Chris, and how he has had no vehicle to speak about that and do that, and like I can watch all of those 60s, especially the Czech films, are so powerful in terms of how they would get around talking and speaking about very nature, and they had to do very heavy satire for people to obfuscate the idea that they were very critical of the government and the oppression that they were doing, and some slip by the net, but some get caught and banned.
Interesting. That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, it's cool.
Because I mean, it's like we always say, science fiction books are about today, and so this book is about 1961 in Poland. You know, that's really what this book is about, in a matter of way. And all science fiction books are about the events of today, kind of written in another form. And I think we see that through a lot of the SF Masterworks books that we read at the time. Sure. Sometimes it's about the hopeful nature of that. Sometimes it's about something else. Fears for the future, that kind of stuff. But you know, kind of the March of an Oppressive State is one, and Jared's favorite book of all time, as we know, 1984. You know, the more that you talk about it, the more true it seems to be.
Yeah, I hate it. So good.
That's got to go on a t-shirt. You've got it on the list of t-shirt things, right?
Yes, yeah, that's it. This book is so good. I hate it.
All right. Are we ready to talk about pots? Speaking of interesting ways to criticize the government.
What kind of pots? Teapots? No. I found it. Yeah, I found it fascinating that it was basically, you know, like archaeological pots.
Yes.
That the story was actually about. Yeah. So. It's funny.
Yeah, I love that element of it too. Yeah, so synopsis. It's quite a long story and quite far-reaching, but I think in essence it's about a civilization trying to investigate or finding an artifact. In this case, probably what you would call the Voyager probe, and trying to work out its kind of origins and kind of going on this kind of search for what they think is this great galactic empire that spanned right across the world and did all of that kind of stuff. And the more that they go and dig and find and search, the more the truth is revealed, and how, you know, for all of the grandiose things and things that they thought, like probes, they were a galactic empire, etc. It's within the pots and the clay things and the very artifacts of life that the truth gets revealed. And I think it's a very powerful story done and revealed in that way, you know, of how they kind of go and search. It's like, yeah, it reminds me actually a little bit of Battlestar Galactica in some ways, of how it sort of played out and how it's kind of sought this kind of the people wanting to get back home kind of thing. It sort of reminded me a lot of that in terms of its desire and its kind of thought, but a very clever piece of writing and a very clever kind of construct of how, looking back at ourselves, just like shining a mirror back at ourselves, and kind of the way we'll be seen in the future and the kind of things that will stand the test of time.
Yeah, I was really impressed with her writings. Just her prose, I thought it was beautiful at points,
Mhm.
and I really enjoyed actually just reading through her her words and how she used them, and I really liked. There was also this like this undercurrent of kind of science versus religion type of thing,
Mm.
and but it was almost turned around where people were using science as the religion, and the the uh like the our man, who was it, Desan, um was working for, the what do they call it, the magistrates, and that was the religion, although the whole time he's telling them, no, you're the ones who are the crackpots who are coming up with these fantastical theories, and but they were trying to tell him that his whole basis of the origins of the human species is not correct. It's actually this, and so I really liked that back and forth play between Desan and what was the woman's name? I
So
can't
that
remember.
gives me some-
Gothon, I think.
Gothon,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, good. Yeah.
I really like that back and forth play between them, and how the story started out with the son despising low level servitors, robots, and and it was just I just thought it was very clever how she weaved all this different things in there, and um I liked, yeah, I loved all her word choices. I'm looking forward to reading more Cherry in the future, because
Definitely.
if this is any indication of her writing style, I'm all in. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got to check if we've got anything by her on the wheel.
We do.
Oh,
I
we
have a,
do?
I
Okay,
have a
nice.
book that we put on there. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I really love the, I mean, I guess apart from the action part of it, which I don't think I particularly enjoyed, but the the notion that they are willing to destroy each other and this entire planet over the need to protect their belief system, I thought that was interesting, and also this devolvement uh, of even something that should be scientific research into religious heresies, like you said, Jared. That that exploration was it's quite brilliant because if you get attached enough to an idea, even if it's a scientific theory, if you're willing to die or kill to protect it, then maybe we need to rethink about the objectivity of it all, whether we are staying unbiased researchers uh, in the exploration of that idea. So I
Hmm.
think it that part of it I thought was really well done, and I did enjoy the whole conversation and the lead up to that conclusion. This underlying uh, tension that wasn't really explained at any point, but I think we got a good sense of what it was by the time we got to the end, which I think she did really well for not holding
Mhm.
her hand there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a good story, and definitely I like the sort of the fact that it had a journey and a reveal at the end, and its structure was very good. It like we often talk about length of story, etc. This one used it, you know what I mean, and used it
Hmm.
Mm,
well. Whereas others kind of padded. This
yeah,
wasn't padded. This one sort of used the time and the
yeah,
structure. Like it says, there's a couple of bits it could have done, but it still had a lot of character interactions and discussions between
yeah.
Scotland and so yeah, a really interesting piece of writing, and definitely it sort of gives you a flavor for the ideas that were kind of floating about this sort of reverse apocalypse or
Yeah.
reverse
Yeah.
dystopia, you know.
Yeah. Like I have a a highlighted piece of writing in here that was I just thought was brilliant. And it was, if you don't mind, I'll spout it out here.
Dramatic reading. Here we go. Right,
Dramatic reading.
can we
So
bring the lights down? No.
it said, he feared that there was no rest to be had in this place, that once the body stopped moving, the weight of the sky would come down. The deadly sky that had boded destruction for all the history of this lost species. And the age of the land would seep into his bones and haunt his dreams as the far greater scale of stars did not. I just thought that was so beautiful. In description and the weight of history and the weight of like not just a planet's history but galactic history and everything. I just thought that was great. And that's the kind of prose and lyricism you're in for with reading this Cherry.
Nice. Yeah, I like that section too. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry. No, I was going to wrap it up comment, but if you haven't.
Okay. Well, there was a speaking to what we said earlier about the religion and the science. There was a line later on that said, "We couch our heresies in mathematical formula." I'm just like, oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Go on, Chris.
The thing I was going to say is we've got 2 new authors this week between Cherry and Lem, and I could see myself going down rabbit holes with both of them. You know, in terms of like there is a style to them and a way that they have approached and telling their stories that I find incredibly appealing.
Yeah, I agree. Rabbit holes are welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So that's everything for this week. We will see you next week with the rest of Solaris and the short story Snow by John Crowley. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you soon. Bye.